Canadian serial killer with 49 victims. Robert Pickton case. Robert Pickton became the most prolific serial killer in Canadian history. During 1997 until his arrest, he confessed to killing 49 people. However, he was only convicted of 6 murders. Why is that? What did he do that he was only convicted of those 6 cases? Before we talk more about his case, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Robert Pickton's childhood. Robert William Pickton was born in Coquitlam, British Columbia on October 24, 1949. He grew up under the strict and harsh environment of his mother and in the absence of his father. His mother was named Louise Pickton and his father, Leonard Pickton. Robert had one younger brother named Dave Francis Pickton and one older sister, Linda Louise Pickton. Linda was sent to Vancouver by her parents, growing up in a neighborhood away from their farm. Their 2 sons helped on the farm and ranch that they had inherited for 3 generations. Louise employed her 2 sons for long hours even on school days. Robert was known as a quiet boy around the neighborhood. He was not very popular at school, especially among the girls, because he did not like to dress neatly and cleanly. His body was also smelly, sometimes smelling of dirt, soil, or dead animals. Moreover, he was afraid of water because his mother always forced him to take a bath. During school, he didn't have many achievements and left school early. His killer instinct grew out of the influence of the 2 people closest to him, Louise and Dave. On October 16, 1967, Dave had just gotten his driver's license. He drove his father's red truck recklessly and hit a 14-year-old boy, Tim Barrett. Barrett was walking on the side of the road where Dave's truck was passing. Dave panicked. He went home and reported it to Louise. After Dave told her about the accident, Louser and her 2 children returned to the scene. They found Barrett lying down and injured, but he was still alive. Louise knelt down, checked on Barrett, and then pushed him into the ditch around the road. The action was watched by her 2 teenage sons. The next day, Barrett was found dead. An autopsy revealed that Barrett died as a result of drowning. Although he was badly injured, it was impossible for the injuries to kill him. The Pickton's life. When his parents passed away, Robert and Dave sold most of their property for urban development. This left them with only 6.5 hectares, and they earned $5.16 million in 1994 to 1995. Bill Hiscox, a worker at the farm, said Robert's property was terrible, although parties were often held around the stable. In 1996, Robert and Dave created a nonprofit charity called Palace Good Times Society. Its purpose was to organize, coordinate, manage, and operate special events, functions, dances, shows, and exhibitions on behalf of service organizations, sports organizations, and other worthwhile groups. The actual purpose is to organize wild parties called the Piggy Palace. The Piggy Palace is conducted around their pig farm building, which is arranged into a party hall. Their parties are famous among the locals as they are often attended by up to 2,000 people. Most attendees are sex workers or bikers. Their New Year's party on December 31, 1998 was forced to disband because it violated zoning regulations. As a result, Piggy Palace Good Times Society is not allowed to hold any future parties. In January 2000s, Piggy Palace Good Times Society was dissolved due to its inability to provide the required financial reports. Both Robert and Dave have their own criminal records. In 1997, Robert, who knew many sex workers from his charity, got into an argument with one of them, Wendy Lynn Eistetter. Eistetter reported Robert's attempted murder of her. She managed to escape, later saying that one of her hands was chopped off and she was stabbed multiple times. Some evidence was found, one of which was Eistetter's handcuff key found in Robert's pocket. However, the police did not pursue the case because Eistetter was a drug addict and thought she was hallucinating. Both Robert and Eistetter were hospitalized with stab wounds. Dave was reported for sexual assault in 1998 and has been charged 3 times for traffic violations. The 1997 case was his first attempted murder that would become his serial killer case. After Robert's first attempted murder, Bill Hiscox began to keep an eye on conditions around the Pickton farm. Exactly 3 years after that case too, in the 2000s, Hiscox reported to the police that women who came to the farm would disappear. The farm was known as a gathering place for sex workers and drug users. Not only Hiscox's report, another report came from Sarah DeVries, a friend of Wayne Lang who was victimized by Pickton, who said other sex workers had seen many identity cards among Robert's belongings. The sex worker who saw it immediately informed the police, but police action is very slow. From these reports, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, had called Robert and his brother Dave about the disappearance of women from Vancouver's downtown east side. After that, there was no further action. After his parents died and sold some of the family's assets, Robert worked as a pig farmer, selling to his friends and neighbors. Not only as a farmer, he and Dave also worked as salvage company proprietors near Vancouver. In 1999, Canadian police received a report that Robert was keeping human remains in his office freezer. But again, no action was taken by the police. Investigation and punishment. An investigation was conducted on February 22, 2002 with a search warrant for illegal possession of firearms. However, what the police found were not only firearms, but the missing women's belongings. Robert was immediately arrested, and a second search warrant for the missing women was granted. The search, which extended to the surrounding area of Robert's pig farm, was led by the RCMP and Vancouver police. Police found a human skull that had been cut in half, filled with human hands and feet, bloody clothing, and the jawbone and teeth of the same victim. From the autopsy examination, the bones belonged to 33 women. Not only that, the police also found a used Magnum revolver, a long-barreled, 2 pairs of synthetic handcuffs, photos of a trash can filled with the victim's belongings, and lastly, a pair of glasses used at night. Most of the victims are from Vancouver's downtown Eastside area, also known as Low Track. The area is the poorest in all of Canada, with the majority of the population working as local sex workers and drug dealers, and hence has one of the highest HIV rates in North America. Robert's killing spree began in the 1990s. Starting in September 1978, Robert, who was only 28 years old at the time, killed Lillian Jean O'Dare. Then on August 30, 1997, he killed Marnie Lee Frey. March 1 of the same year, the victim was 34-year-old Georgia Faith Papin. Then in February, he killed 32-year-old Brenda Ann Wolfe. At least those are the murders and victims confirmed by the police. According to several recordings and reports, Robert's methods of getting his victims were to offer them drugs or buy sexual services from them. He often went to the Low Track area to go to the processing factory, which was also used to throw away animal waste. He only had to drive and pass 10 blocks to get to the Low Track. When he managed to get his victims to the area around the farm, he began to execute them in various ways. Sometimes he would tie them up, have sex with them, then choke them, mutilate them, and then grind them in a factory and feed them to the pigs he raised. Or when having sex with his victims, he becomes abusive or accuses his victims of stealing or making him angry. He would then choke or shoot his victims and feed them to his pigs. The diagnosis showed that he was a psychopath. This disorder is defined by a lack of empathy and concern for the rights of others, which leads to a tendency to commit crimes. Such complex disorders are influenced by environmental and genetic factors. This diagnosis was evidenced by Robert's statement that he regretted not completing the number of victims to 50. The statement, obtained through an officer who disguised himself as his cellmate, was later used as evidence for the trial on January 30, 2006. Robert also received 26 murder charges, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in Canadian history. However, all 26 charges were dismissed due to a lack of evidence and were considered too much pressure on the judges because each case was materially different. Finally, on December 6, 2007, Robert was found guilty of 6 murders which were downgraded from first degree to second degree. The 6 cases included Andrea Josbury, Serena Bostway, Marnie Lee Frey, Brenda Ann Wolfe, Georgina Faith Papin, and Mona Lee Wilson. On December 9, 2007, Judge James Williams sentenced her to life imprisonment without the possibility of release for 25 years, which is the most severe sentence. The other charges were dismissed as unlikely to increase his sentence. Dave, Robert's younger brother who lived in the same property as Robert, denied that he was involved in Robert's serial killings. He said he didn't know that there were many women who visited their farm. Although Robert himself confessed to killing 49 women, forensic officers had difficulty identifying the bodies of the victims because they were already in the process of rioting. Rumor has it that the bodies of his victims were also sold by mixing them with pork to the public. However, there is no evidence. Various criticisms were also given to the RCMP and Vancouver police in handling this case. The big case is considered too much covered up to the public. The RCMP is considered not to have cooperated well with other investigative institutions, such as the 1985 Air India bombing case. Meanwhile, the Vancouver police are considered slower to act because they do not take the case of the disappearance of many women as something serious. Another similar case, one serial killer who erased traces of his victims by turning them into feed for his pets like Robert Pickton was Joe Ball. He has many nicknames for his legendary murder case, including the Butcher of Elmendorf, Alligator Man, and Bluebeard of South Texas. Joe Ball was known as a handsome man born into the richest family in Elmendorf. His story became a folklore among Texans. No one knows the exact number of his victims, but he killed at least 20 women in the 1930s, including his wife and his ex-girlfriend. After returning to serve on the front lines during World War I, Ball returned to his hometown in Elmendorf. At first, he worked as an alcohol bootlegger and sold illegal alcohol to anyone who could afford to pay. From the profits of his illegal alcohol sales, he later built a bar called the Sociable Inn. In his bar, he built a large pond containing 5 crocodiles. People who wanted to see them had to pay. The crocodiles were fed with live dogs and cats at first. It is believed that he killed his victims by shooting them. Some of them were buried, but most of them were fed to his pet crocodiles. There were many reports of women disappearing from his bar, and evidence of the remains of his victims that he had buried earlier was found. When 2 Bexar County Sheriff's deputies came in 1938 to arrest and interrogate him, Ball shot himself. Some say he shot him in the heart, while others say in the head. That's why his figure, the number of victims, and how he killed became a popular folklore in Texas. Because all of that is still a mystery. Are you also curious about Joe Ball's story? The serial killer who became an object of folklore in Texas. If you want us to talk about it, let me know in the comments.